What finally made you snap at work? I'd been working at this family restaurant for 2 years when I walked into the break room that Tuesday and found Tommy hunched over the table, counting the same 3 quarters over and over like maybe he'd miscounted. Tommy has Down syndrome and he'd been our busser for 3 years, and when he looked up at me, his eyes were all watery as he asked, "Where did my tip money go?" He pushed his notebook toward me where he'd written $40 for yesterday, but his envelope just had those 3 quarters rattling around. Tommy mentioned he needed $200 more for his Special Olympics trip in 3 weeks, and my chest got tight because suddenly everything clicked. I spent the next few shifts watching like a hawk, and customers would slip bills into Tommy's hand or leave them on his tables, and I watched him carefully put every dollar in that jar with his name on it, smiling each time. That dinner shift alone, I counted $60 go in, but when Tommy checked at closing, his face just crumpled, staring into the empty jar. Nathan strolled over, not even looking Tommy in the eye, and said, "You get paid hourly so you don't need tips anyway," while scrolling his phone. My stomach turned because everyone else got tips on top of hourly. When I asked other servers during break, they suddenly needed to check their phones or refill drinks, until Amy grabbed my arm in the parking lot. She whispered that Nathan had been doing this for months, maybe before I even started, but he'd fired people for less. She mentioned Nathan's new truck and the Cancun charges on the company card, while Tommy brought the same peanut butter sandwich every day, carefully rewrapping the plastic bag. The worst part was watching Tommy ask if he was too slow, actually practicing clearing tables faster, apologizing to customers who tried to tip him. Friday killed me when Tommy's mom thanked Nathan for teaching Tommy money management, and Nathan patted Tommy's shoulder while the kid beamed at him. Saturday morning, I cornered Nathan in the supply room about Tommy's tips, and his whole face went red as he stepped closer to me and said, "Mind your own business unless you want to find another job," then added that Tommy wouldn't even know what to do with money anyway, and that's when my hands started shaking with anger. After Nathan stuck me with every terrible shift that week as punishment, I knew I had to try the proper channels, so Monday morning I knocked on Mrs. Valdez's office door with Tommy's notebook clutched in my sweaty hands. She kept counting receipts while I explained everything, not even glancing up when I showed her Tommy's careful handwriting, tracking every stolen dollar. She finally looked at me over her glasses and said, "You're being dramatic. Drop this immediately or you're fired for creating a hostile work environment," and my throat went dry when I realized she'd known all along. My hands were still shaking when I walked out of her office, but this time from determination instead of anger. I drove straight to the Department of Labor downtown and sat across from an investigator who leaned forward in her chair when I explained Tommy had an intellectual disability and Nathan was targeting him specifically because of it. The next week felt like walking on glass at work, secretly meeting customers in the parking lot who pressed written statements into my hands about Tommy's tips while I kept serving Nathan coffee like nothing was happening. Then I remembered Miguel's sudden resignation 6 weeks back, and when I messaged him on Facebook, he sent me screenshots of emails where Nathan actually wrote about taking tips for safekeeping, and Miguel said Nathan had stolen from him too, but he couldn't afford to lose the job fighting it. 2 weeks later, I was refilling salt shakers when 3 investigators walked through our front door during Friday dinner rush, and Nathan's coffee mug stopped halfway to his mouth. They set up in the back office and started calling employees in one by one, and I watched Nathan's shirt get darker with sweat stains as servers came out looking relieved to finally tell someone. The investigators showed me their calculations, over $8,000 stolen from Tommy alone based on customer statements, and through the office window, I watched Nathan's face go white when they laid out the emails in front of him. He kept sputtering, "This is all a misunderstanding," while Mrs. Valdez suddenly appeared, practically pushing Nathan toward the investigators, claiming she was shocked and had no idea, but they just turned their attention to her books next, and I saw her hands start trembling too. Nathan got arrested for felony theft, and the restaurant shut down within a month. Tommy got almost $10,000 back, made his Special Olympics trip, and won 2 medals. He works at a grocery store now where they actually respect him, and he keeps every tip.